I, 25 female, insulted my boyfriend, 25 male, after I found out his secret. Throwaway account because I don't really use Reddit. My boyfriend Ben, 28 male, and I, 25F, have been dating for almost 2 years. While our relationship is not perfect, it's pretty damn close. Our biggest disagreement was when I switched oat milk brands and he kept forgetting and bringing the other brand. We're both quite naturally calm people and prefer a constructive discussion to a heated argument. This is why what happened last week caught me off guard. Towards the beginning of our relationship, when we weren't exclusive, Ben had a fling with a coworker, let's call her Steph. He is the head of IT at a major firm and she works in a different department, so they only see each other occasionally, even more so now that he switched to remote work 2 days a week. When he told me about their fling and I talked to my friends about it, they said I wasn't allowed to be bothered about it as our relationship wasn't defined at the time and they only slept together once. Some days I will fixate on it and wonder if he talked to Steph at work and if she still fancied him. I know I'm not allowed to monitor his interactions with anyone and would never try to control him, but it does make me feel something when I think about him even being near her. I don't know if it's jealousy or insecurity or even if it's rational. Anyway, last week we got invited to a dinner party hosted by his boss. I'd been to a couple of his office parties before but only interacted with a couple people and usually was glued to Ben's side all night since I am a bit of an introvert. From my immediate impression, Ben's boss is a bit of a rich prick, but he knew how to throw a good enough party that I began to loosen up and interact with more than 2 people all night. As a teacher, I've always felt insecure around people who make so much more money than me and always felt like they looked down on me, but that couldn't have been further from the truth. I was immediately included on the inside jokes, made a couple of my own and even got invited to a double date with one of his coworkers and his wife. While Ben was grabbing me some food, one of his friends made a passing comment about Steph. She was at the party but stayed away from the group we were hanging out with. I said I don't care about her, but I also have nothing to talk to her about, which is true. I wasn't about to go compare notes with her, and the fact that she did stay away from us did put me at ease and made me not as wary of her. His friend laughed and said, well then you might feel the same way about Molly. Molly was another coworker of Ben's who I had actually gotten on with the whole night. I was confused and didn't understand what he was trying to say. When he saw my reaction, he completely clammed up, but I demanded he explain himself. Another one of his friends from the group said that Molly and Ben slept together. To say I was shocked is an understatement. I then asked how many other girls Ben had slept with from the office and they told me they knew of 4 different girls. At that point Ben came back, unaware his friends had spilled his secrets but picked up on the tense atmosphere. Internally I was fuming and hurt, but I kept a cool facade, and when Ben asked what was wrong I just looked at him and said, your friends were just informing me that you're the office SLT. He looked shocked and I left to go to the bathroom to calm down. I knew if I stayed at this party any longer I would have a breakdown and needed to leave. So I went straight to our car and drove home without telling him. When I got back home I replied to his numerous texts about where I was and told him I came home and he could find his own way back. He got home around an hour after me, and by that time I had already cried my feelings out and was ready to have a conversation. He came into the house absolutely livid, which I didn't understand because he was the one who lied to me. He's never even raised his voice at me for anything before, but he was shouting about how I embarrassed him and word had gotten around to his other coworkers because I reacted immaturely. I tried to explain my position, that how would he feel if he found out I had slept with 4 of my coworkers and never told him. He just kept reiterating that he never had a relationship with them and it was just sex. I knew going into our relationship he was way more experienced than me sexually, but I refused to believe he could sleep with these women and not feel anything for them, but that is beside the point and he should have told me. But all he is hung up on is that I insulted him to his friends. When he was done yelling he said he was going to stay at his brother's house to calm down and not to contact him until he cooled down. I told him I wouldn't contact him first because I'm not in the wrong, he is. It's been a week since he's been at his brother's house and we still haven't talked. I have no clue where we go from here. Was I wrong to react the way I did? I didn't think I was, but now I'm second guessing myself. I didn't think calling him the office SLT would elicit this reaction, but I don't think it was a lie either. Should I apologize or wait for him to make the first move? My issue is not so much with him sleeping with the other women but hiding it. Update: I just want to say thanks for everyone's response. I can't reply to them all, but I have read what everyone has written and just need to clarify a few things. We had discussed previous partners, but he omitted ONS as he didn't consider them partners and only told me about girlfriends he had. Ben is my first boyfriend and I had only ever slept with one guy before, but that man wasn't my boyfriend either, but I still disclosed it. There is some speculation I went through his phone and badger him about Steph. That is not true at all. I knew my issues with Steph were my own and never made him answer for them. Even when he told me I was slightly upset, but again it was something we discussed and I got advice from my friends about we moved forward from. I did not yell out the comment I made, it was only in front of Ben and 2 of his work friends. I did not ask his friends who the other 2 girls were, as I thought that should come from Ben. I don't know when the encounters with the other 3 girls happened. I am aware my comment was wrong and I am fully ready to apologize for that and for leaving us stranded. He had to get a lift from his brother. In my post I wrote our car. That's not true, I just think of it that way because I use it more, but it's actually his car. I made a typo in the title. I'm 25 and Ben is 28. Anyway, an actual update. I texted him this morning saying, hey, I know you asked me not to contact you first, but I've given you a week and really feel like we need to have a conversation. I hope you've been doing okay. I didn't want to start apologizing or questioning him over text. I did that about 6:30 before I left for work and was teaching all day, so I knew I wouldn't be able to constantly check my phone. It's lunchtime right now and he's responded saying he's at work, which is confusing because Friday and Monday are his remote work days, so I don't understand why he's gone in. I texted back and said we can talk after work if he wanted to come home, and he agreed. I honestly have no clue how tonight is going to go. I really don't want to break up. I know a lot of you are gonna say I don't have a backbone for messaging him first, but I haven't been able to eat or sleep all week and this has been so mentally and physically exhausting. My workload this week has been crushing and this added stress has made me reach my limit. Update 2. Hey everyone, it's Saturday and I'm still in bed and thought I should give an update. Before I do, I just wanted to clarify one thing. I switched from All Pro to Oatly, and it's much better. Also, I'm paraphrasing since I can't remember everything we said. So I was quite nervous about Ben coming over after work. I was meant to do some work but was too distracted to even attempt it. I did, however, as a gesture of good faith, decide to cook his favorite meal for him and maybe use it as an icebreaker. I did take someone's advice of writing everything down just so I could keep my thoughts clear. After work I texted asking him what time he would be over and he said he'd text me when he left work and takes him about 30 minutes on the tube to reach home. He got here about 6ish and rang the doorbell, which was so weird. He still had his keys. I opened the door and we kinda awkwardly greeted each other. Immediate impression was that he didn't look angry or upset, just cold. I sat down on the sofa and expected him to join me, but he just stood in the middle of the room with his hands in his trousers. I said I was glad he came over and he just nodded. Then I said it was weird being in his house by myself all week, and all he said was I'm sure it was. He asked me why I texted him now and not sooner, and I said it was because he told me not to contact him. I told him I'd been miserable and that I was sorry for the comment I made and leaving, and especially for taking his car. He said he didn't give a crap about the car, just that I had left without telling him. I got a chance to finally explain myself to him. I never cared how many women he slept with before. I'd known he was a bit of a F-boy before we got together, and never held it against him. I just hated being blindsided and feeling like I knew less about my boyfriend than some random coworkers. I asked why he didn't just tell me since he knew I'd be around them, and he said honestly didn't think it was important and mattered to me. I called crap because he knows how I am and he knew it would matter. He admitted he did regret sleeping with those women, as he never thought about having to bring his future girlfriend around them and tell her about it. 2 of them happened when he first joined the company straight of uni. One of those girls has left already and the other is actually dating Ben's friend who told me about Molly. He said at that point of his life he was fine sleeping around and never really thought of the consequences. I asked why his friend decided to even say anything to me about it, and he said they always try to piss each other off, and one thing that gets Ben annoyed is when someone brings up his F-boy ways. He said after I left his friends felt bad for what they said, but I told him I never would have reacted that way if I had known, and he should have told me. He said I was trying to justify my response after apologizing. I told him I didn't want to do that. I do genuinely think what I said and did was wrong, but he can't put all the blame on me. He said the only thing he could apologize for is sleeping with a bunch of women, and since that was before me it didn't make any sense. I kept saying it was the hiding bit that upset me, and he asked what difference would it have made if I had known? I did think about that for a moment. I still would have gone, but I think I would have been a bit more hyper aware of the Molly and the other girl. He said he wanted me to be there and have a good time and didn't want to ruin it by telling me about irrelevant crap in his past, and I guess I understood that sentiment because I decided to let it go. We both were quiet there for a moment, and he asked if I was done? And if I was going to end it, then I needed to pick another reason, since this would be the stupidest reason. I told him I didn't want to break up and that we needed to talk about everything, but I wanted him to come sit next to me, and he did. So I asked if there were any others and he said no. I asked him who knew in the office and he said only his friend group, and they keep their mouths shut to everyone because all of them were doing the same crap. He told me he slept with Molly right before we met. I was curious about why he went into work today when it was his remote work day, and he said that his nieces wouldn't let him concentrate at home, so he just decided to go in. He did say he was furious last week and didn't know if he could move forward, but talking to his brother helped and he calmed him down. He said if I didn't text him he was planning on contacting me first today anyway so we could talk. So we didn't break up, I apologized, and while he didn't so the same, I have decided to let it go and move on. I told him I made his favorite meal and he finally kissed me and told me he missed me. Anyway, I know some of you are gonna say he should have dumped me straight away or I should have demanded an apology, but I'm happy with the outcome. I finally had a meal and good night's sleep. Even Ben said I looked like I had lost weight. Thank for the people who have messaged me offering me advice, and I really hope I never have to give another update. Next story. I, 29 male, am married, 10 years, to a narcissistic/BPD wife, 30F, affecting the family, and I'm in a major dilemma. Sorry for the wall of text, but the details need to be said. Where do I even start? My wife of 10 years has been displaying emotional abuse towards me and our oldest daughter for 10 years now. It used to be rare, enough where it wouldn't impact us, but the past year has been dreadful. Our daughter is becoming a teenager, and she isn't taking her crap anymore. I often have to get involved and stand up for my daughter to calm my wife down. But then I'm the bad guy. I'm depressed as F. I can't stand my wife anymore. I'm to the point now where the only reason why I'm in this marriage is because of the kids. I often have to lie to her to avoid confrontation. What's worse, is that our fights. They're long. I am criticized if I stand up for myself, and they are frequent, 4 times a week lately. So I just don't even try with that anymore. My opinion doesn't matter. So I lie about how I feel, etc., etc. Sometimes she'll yell at me for stuff that needs to be done that she doesn't think needs to be done. Example, today there was an kitchen electronic in the sink. She put it there. She needed my help for something else, but I had to get the electronic out of the sink in case one of the kids turned the water on. She didn't like that, said it was stupid for paying attention to something not her, said I don't know how to respect people. Forget about the safety of our children and possessions. That brings me to another point. Her breaking our stuff during fights. When I did stand up to her, she will just start throwing stuff. Anything, TV remotes, pictures, frames, drywall, dishes. Over a year ago she broke a 42-inch TV. She used to blame me for getting her that mad, but I retaliated and told her that I didn't throw it, it isn't my fault. Most of the fights with her and us, me and daughter, are about us not helping out enough around the house. Forget about me having a full-time job, 45 hours a week, being a part-time student, and studying to get promoted in the military. What sucks is that even if I follow her lead to the T, I get yelled at because I took too long or I don't have my priorities right. If I do stuff without her telling me to, it doesn't meet her standards, etc., etc. Her method and timing of arguments is so flawed. Today, she made me late for work just to argue with me. If this were a civilian job, I would get fired. When I do tell her that I have to leave to avoid being late, she usually says your work is always more important than me. No, it's not. It's a job that provides for this family, and providing for this family is more important than your 7 a.m. argument. I feel like I'm the only one who cares about the family as a whole, not just my wife. My daughter always stays away from my wife as much as possible, but it is hard for her to because of all the family interaction. We are trying to teach her responsibility so she has a few chores. When they don't get done, her mother abuses her, sometime worse than she does me. This is where I step in. Our daughter's emotional health is going downhill. Her doctor says it's ADHD, but I know better. It's her lack of motivation. She needs to see a psychiatrist and get away from me, mother. It only gets worse from here. Our youngest is starting to have daytime wetting accidents. I have concluded that they're related to the psychological stress that she is causing. Since he is a boy, I would find it hard to be a UTI. Oh yeah, and I'm likely taking a civilian job and moving to our home state by the end of the year. Wife plans to take the kids with. As for the efforts to fix this, I've tried. I try making her happy, be romantic, never pay attention to anything but her, but it doesn't work. She knows that she has a problem, especially the throwing objects part, but she refuses to see a psychiatrist. I know she won't get fixed if she doesn't see one.
So this is where I need your help. What power do I, a man, have over my wife to get me and the kids out of her abusive household?
I do plan on divorcing her within the next year and a half, and I want to make every effort possible to get my kids out of this situation so that they can live a mentally healthy lifestyle. If you think there is no chance of me getting custody, let me know. TLDR, wife's abusive behavior is affecting kids psychologically, planning a divorce but need evidence to prove abuse. Update 1. Last night my wife threatened me with a butcher knife to make me leave the house. To cut to the chase, our son started running in fear and hit his head. I called the cops. I also had a partial video of her chasing me with the knife. The cops came and saw the video. Along with all of the family members agreeing that my wife had a butcher knife in her hand and threatened to use it, she was booked for domestic violence. Today I feel like crap. I, along with my son, have a protective order against her. My family and her family is calling us from several states away to mediate the situation. No one on her side wants to admit it's her fault, they're blaming me for it. On top of that, my daughter is mad at me and blames me for all of this. My son and daughter want me to drop the charges. My wife has also communicated that she wants to work on this together, that there is still a chance to save this relationship. On one hand, I believe this is just a bait and run plan on her part, hoping that I fall for it, let the protective order expire and then she takes the kids and run. On the other hand, she does sound sincere since she is admitting that she needs to see a shrink and she hasn't screwed our finances yet. What do you guys think? Edit, for those of you wondering, I have talked to a lawyer. I do like him so far, but finances are tight. I will likely be getting a debt consolidation loan or file for bankruptcy. Right now I'm getting into contact with free legal assistance programs, but I don't know what I qualify for. Also, the kids' reaction is the exact opposite of what I expected. I expected my daughter to support me since she has taken most of the abuse from her mother, but instead she wants me to lift the order to make things go back to normal. My son, who is the golden child, has told me that he doesn't want to see his mom again because he is scared of her. I know he is young and doesn't know what he is saying, but that took me by surprise. Other than that, they are taking it well and I will be getting their insurance to extend their therapy visits. TLDR, got a restraining order put up against my narcissistic wife, now what? Update 2. So I had a permanent protective order hearing this week. I show up with my lawyer, my STBX wife shows up with no representation. We show some of the videos I took, showing abuse from her on myself and both kids. Her only defense was about how she has been attending therapy sessions, anger management classes, etc. It did look like she had better control with her self-discipline. The judge ruled in my favor, gave me custody of the children, sole access to residence, extended the protective order to the max, 2 years, and only gives her visitation with supervision. Contact can only be made regarding visitation and finances. Reason for finances is because we have co-signed on multiple credit lines. Before anyone asks, I can cover all of our co-credit lines but one. Since then, she has called me every day, begging me to drop the protective order, which is a violation of the order itself. I mention this every time, and she responds with every scumbag Stacy line that you could think of, like you're so cold, any reasonable person would fight for their wife, etc. I am not going to report any of the violations until the final check clears in our joint checking account, and that's a rent payment. I had a heart-to-heart conversation with her, told her that I need therapy for possible PTSD, caused by her actions. I even mentioned that I'm in the military, I'm supposed to get PTSD from being in the desert, not at home from my wife. She cries, admits that it is her fault, that she can never forgive herself for doing this to her kids and her husband. Shockingly, no threats of suicide. I guess this is a good sign, she understands that her actions have a negative impact on others. That is the first time that she admits to it, before she would just say deal with it and man up. She also claims that she has no memory of some of her episodes, like one of the videos shown in court. I believe that she is just in denial, but that's just my speculation. What sucks even more is that I've been watching some documentaries on YouTube and Netflix. A couple on Scientology, another one was Dear Zachary. Yikes. Talk about some depressing documentaries that I can sadly relate to. The woman in Dear Zachary, Shirley Turner, is a raging psycho, and says so many things that remind me of my STB ex-wife, although I don't think my wife would kill. The manipulation techniques pointed out in the Scientology documentaries are similar to what my wife did. There is no chance of us getting back together, and I have told her that divorce papers will be getting served on her soon. I'd like to thank Reddit for the support. I have a close coworker who has been through something similar that I have been talking to as well. But every now and then, I have to validate my sanity, and I reread the posts that you all have put up. TLDR, 1 custody of children, psycho wife can only have supervised contact, but she is getting better. Still no chance in hell of us getting back together. Update 3. The past 2 weeks have been an emotional roller coaster for me. My STB ex-wife, who I have a protective, restraining order against, is not in good condition. Initially, after I won the 2-year hearing, she was slowly getting onto her feet. Her father came down and talked some sense into her. She still had her job and managed to get a place to stay. Her finances were in perfect order, which is a good thing. She had a roof, a job, transportation, and enough money for food and child support. All seemed to be going well. And then her dad left. She hasn't made a single rational choice since. She pissed off her roommates, especially after she was arrested. Again, more on that later. They kicked her out. As of right now, I think she is living in a motel. What's worse, is what happened last week. She had courted around noon, for the assault charges and protective order violations. I was called a witness. So that day, she calls me up at 8:30 a.m., tells me that she is going to swallow a bottle of pills. She is very persistent and sounded quite convincing. I tell her not to, email her the suicide help hotline, called it myself, and they recommended that I call 911. I did, and the police show up to her door to make sure she is okay. She answers, claims that she has done no such thing and that I was calling the cops in an attempt to make her late for court. What the F? So basically she used the suicide threat as bait to get me to call the cops on her before her court time. Luckily, there are no charges for contempt. After the trial, they told her that she is on probation. Then, of all things, she shows up at my house, that night, pounding on the door so that she can say goodbye to the kids before she kills herself. Yeah, not happening. I call the cops again, then she flees before they show up. She got picked up the day after and sent to jail, that's why her roommates kicked her out. That was twice in 2 days that the cops showed up. She has since threatened suicide many more times. I don't take her threats seriously anymore, since it might be bait like last time. I am seeing a therapist now and he reassures me that I need to stand my ground, that I cannot under any circumstance let her back in. I have no intentions of letting her back in, ever for that matter. I've since blocked her number and blocked her on Facebook. Another thing that I found interesting is that my therapist said that in his 30 years of experience this case takes the cake. I don't know what my plan is from here, but I plan on only having recorded conversations with her and will likely move to another house/appointment when my lease expires this summer. TLDR, wife is out of control, lost her room and is now homeless, used suicide as bait to try to get me in contempt. Final update. First, read my previous posts, there's a lot to take in. I'll try to do a quick summary. Last year, around November/December, I uncovered the truth about my wife. I knew that she had a temper that would get into some uncontrollable rages, but the full extent was never known to me. She also claimed she was suicidal, which I now know was a method of hers to control me. I started to notice that the children would come out of their rooms or come back inside when I got home from work. I asked my daughter for more details and she explained that her mother's rages were terrible, very emotionally and physically violent. Both children were having psychological problems such as AITA in my daughter and daytime wedding in my son. I finally got a few recordings of her abusing our children. In one argument, she came after me with a knife. I got this recorded and called the cops. She was arrested, I got a restraining order against her and the rest is history. She's plead guilty to misdemeanor assault and several counts of restraining order violations since. All jail time is suspended sentences. I've been granted custody. Looking back at it, wow. How much I have changed in the past year. And I can't believe how stupid my STB ex-wife really is. I always saw her as intelligent and thoughtful. But now I know that she is very stupid and incapable of seeing other people's perspectives. She constantly sends me emails that are court gold, as my attorney says. Although we have been doing quite well settling many things outside of court. She acts like a true narcissist. She is so good at creating that false image. But I'm always one step ahead of the game and have the evidence to exploit her faults. Most of the issues is how she communicates with me and talking to the kids. She claims that I'm holding her back from her visitation rights by, wait for it, asking what time she wants to visit them. She says that this is annoying and that she shouldn't have to repeat herself. She will then say, well, back on August 6th I sent an email, so just go back and check that. If you're not there at the time that I requested, then I'm telling the judge that you're not compliant. And I just respond by telling her that if she really cares about the children, then she would have no problem repeating the time she wants to see them at. Funny thing is, when I go back to check my emails on that day, then there are 6 lengthy emails, all criticism and her venting. Then, third email, second paragraph, she mentions the time for her next request. I have since put forth some guidelines, one of them telling her to be short and to the point for emails regarding visitation. Again, she didn't like that. My kids are doing great. My daughter wants nothing to do with her and doesn't participate in the visitation. My son has to go, being younger and all. When he does go, she tries to alienate him from me. This has caused some problems with him at home, but I'm working with his therapist to get these fixed. He has improved a lot over the past month. I've been doing great. I have a lot more self-confidence. My finances aren't in the best of shape, but I'll be fine. I could go on all day. Heck, I'm even thinking of starting a subreddit titled My Narcissistic Ex-Wife's Emails. But I'll wait until the divorce is final for that one. TLDR, divorcing predictable narcissist, got custody, doing so much better. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel our posts.